It's my pleasure to invite to the Bima and first to introduce to you, if you haven't already met him, Tarshish, who is a Jewish community professional with a decade of experience driving innovation and change in Jewish student communities around the world. In the last 10 years, Yos has lived and worked in 3 countries, including Israel, serving the Jewish community on the local, national, and international levels. Since 2018, Yos has been part of the team at Hillel, Ontario, the largest Hillel in the world, currently as director of Queen's Hillel in Kingston. Queen's University is home to one of Canada's fastest growing Jewish campus communities, largely thanks to the efforts of Yos and his partner, Leora. This summer, Yos participated in the 33rd cohort of the Nahum Goldman Fellowship, a prestigious program that fosters Jewish connectedness and leadership among emerging leaders from diverse communities across the globe. We are fortunate to have a Jewish professional leader like Yos, who is supported by his equally impressive partner in crime, Leora, who is also a professional educator in our community. And so it is my pleasure and privilege to invite Yos to the Bima today to teach us and challenge us to open our thinking about Israel.
Kol od balevav pnima, as long as within our hearts, nefesh Yehudi homia, the Jewish soul yearns. Ulfate mizrach kadima, as long as forward to the east, ayin letzion Sophia, to Zion looks the eye. Od lo avda tikvatenu, our hope is not yet lost. Hatikvah bat shnot alpayim, the hope that is 2,000 years old. Liyotam chofshi be'atzenu, to be a free people in our land. Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. Doesn't that give you goosebumps? The Hatikvah is a fascinating piece of literature. Does anyone know when it was written? Any ideas? What about who wrote it? The lyrics of Hatikvah were written in 1878 by Naftali Herz Imber, who was a Jewish poet originally from Bohemia, that's kind of modern Central Europe, Czech Republic, Slovakia area. And he wrote the poem Tikvatenu, Our Hope, that was later set to music by Samuel Cohen, who was a Jewish immigrant from Romania, and he set that music to a traditional kind of 16th century Romanian folk song. It's important to note that while the lyrics were penned in 1878, the song underwent several alterations and refinements, so the song that we sing today is actually quite different from the original lyrics that were written by Imber. And something that many people don't know is that actually Israel only adopted it as its national anthem in the 2000s, even though it served obviously as an informal anthem for many years up until then. The Hatikvah is not merely a song. It is a living, breathing entity, a testimony of our collective dreams and undying spirit of resilience. The anthem encapsulates the longing, the dream of return, and the 2,000-year odyssey of our people towards self-determination and freedom. In the last year, we have all been witnesses to the profound turmoil unraveling in Israel, a situation that has evoked deep-seated concerns, stirred impassioned discussions around Shabbat dinner tables worldwide. As we gather here today, it is incumbent upon us to actively engage in understanding the intricate tapestry of events that is unfolding, events that involve a government pushing for substantial judicial reforms and a citizenry rallying, many in opposition, with an intensity that reflects the deep division and the spectrum of perspectives held by the Israeli people. As we gather here today, it is indeed a complex situation, one that intertwines with notions of governance, democracy, and the very fabric that has held the Israeli system together since her founding 75 years ago. It has spurred moments of unprecedented civil mobilization, with many citizens taking to the streets, voicing their concerns and fears and hopes for a future that seems increasingly uncertain. But as we stand from afar, it is our duty to not allow the complexity to deter us from seeking understanding, from engaging in thoughtful conversations, from asking questions, difficult questions about democracy, about justice, and about the values that we hold dear in our hearts. For many amongst us, the events resonate on a personal level, bringing concerns not only for the ideological trajectory of our nation, but also for the safety and well-being of loved ones residing in Israel during these turbulent times. I know for myself, being here as an Israeli living in Canada and speaking to my parents in Netanya regularly, it's incredibly challenging to be away. And whether it's your cousins or your uncles or your aunts or nephews or nieces or maybe children, I know that being far away in Canada can sometimes feel like another world away from the Middle East. But where do we fit in living outside of Israel as Jews? Our role in the diaspora, I don't believe, is passive. We find ourselves at a critical juncture, one where our voices can echo with resonance and with substance. Israel is a core part of our work at Hillel, engaging our students with Israel, helping them to understand current events, and helping them to form real, meaningful, authentic, personal relationships with Israel and Israelis. This isn't easy. As we're all aware, I'm sure, campus is one of the most hostile places to discuss Israel and has been for many, many years. And increasingly, that hostility or challenge and tension is not limited to our engagement outside of our community. Increasingly, as campus is a microcosm of the wider Jewish community, we see students arriving on campus with divergent views on Israel and Zionism and trends that we're seeing play out in the maybe quote-unquote adult Jewish community all over the world. So when thinking about what I would share here today, I decided I would share one of the models we use in our work to open up those lines of dialogue, because as diaspora Jews, we need to be able to talk about Israel. And we need new vocabulary to do so well, especially because the discussions surrounding Israel often sway between being too cerebral to be truly heartfelt or too impassioned to facilitate rational discourse. How can we bridge this gap, embracing both heart and the mind in a balanced dialogue? The 4 Hatikvah questions are a framework that was developed by Makom, which is an Israel education and engagement think tank housed at the Jewish Agency for Israel. And the 4HQ, as it's known, is a simple way to contain the complexity that is Israel. It's a universal yet particular approach, and it offers a constructive way to engage with the big tent. It's a way to get us to talk. The 4HQ necessitates overcoming several challenges, 3 in particular. Challenge number 1. Do we want to live in a tent or a tank? We learn about Abraham's tent, that it was open on all 4 sides, like Middle Eastern tents today are. And we all know that a tank is a metal box designed to keep enemies out and save people inside safe. A Middle Eastern tent is a space that, while having clear boundaries, remains open and inviting to perspectives, inviting a rich mosaic of voices that reflect the essence of openness and inclusivity. And I think that probably most of us would decide that if given the choice, we would live in a tent. Challenge number 2. How do we balance universalism and particularism? How can we maintain a discourse that resonates universally while honoring our unique authenticity, weaving in our distinct perspectives without losing sight of the broader picture? As Jews, we straddle this binary daily. We are a particular people with a particular history and a particular way of engaging with the world, yet we do not live hermetically sealed away from everybody else. We have a universal story and mission that we have been sharing with the world for thousands of years. And challenge number 3. how do we simplify complexity? Can we distill the intricate complexities that really need to be understood in order to engage with Israel into a simplified framework that retains depth and avoids a simplistic reduction of the core issues? Makom, that think tank I mentioned before, proposes a solution to these challenges grounded in the universal. They identified 4 underlying questions that are central to conflicts globally, all conflicts, whether we're talking about the unfolding fighting in Nagorno-Karabakh between Azerbaijan and Armenia, or whether we're looking at the coups breaking out across West Africa, most recently in Niger. These 4 universal questions are intricately woven into the narratives shaping the headlines today. And these questions are: how do we keep safe? Who are we and how should we behave as a result? How can we be free? And how do we make a place our own? Understanding that these questions reverberate globally, Makom delves deeper to resonate them in a Jewish context, framing them in the penultimate line of Hatikvah. That penultimate line has always touched me deeply. I wonder whether it's done the same for you. Lihiyot am chofshi bi'atzenu, to be a free people in our land. The 4HQ model suggests the fundamental question we have to ask ourselves when we have conversations about Israel is what that line means. What does it mean to be a free people in our land? And the 4HQ does this by extracting each of those words, lihiyot, am, chofshi, bi'atzenu, and nurturing a consensus around them while encouraging diverse perspectives on each. Lihiyot, to be, am, a people, chofshi, that is free, bi'atzenu, in our land. So the first Hatikvah question is, what does it mean to be? What does it mean just to exist? What do we need for those things? How do we ensure that our basic security and safety needs are met, in particular in the context of Israel for our friends and family in Israel? Hatikvah question number 2. What do we mean when we say the Jewish people? This second Hatikvah question touches upon the role of tradition and religion in the modern state, fostering discussions around social solidarity within Israel and the Jewish community worldwide. It beckons an ongoing conversation on the relationship between Jewish and non-Jewish communities globally, and extends beyond Zionism and encourages us to have moral reflections. Should the state of Israel follow strict Orthodox law? How should the Kotel, the Western Wall, be managed? Should diaspora Jews get to vote in the Jewish state? The third Hatikvah question is, what do we mean? What does it mean to be free? Holding democracy as a central pillar of free states, this question invites us to have critical discussions on plurality, electoral systems, and the implications of Israeli policies related to the Palestinians on democracy. It is a call to explore the avenues through which freedom can be nurtured, reflecting on human rights, innovation, and creativity. Should Israel be a country governed by majoritarianism, where executives with even the slimmest majorities can execute any policy or vision they want because they won the election? Or should Israel be a liberal democracy, one where the rights, needs, and views of its minority citizens are taken into account, whose parties perhaps didn't get elected into the government? The fourth Hatikvah question, the final one, is when we say our land, where are we referring to? Since the Uganda Plan was thrown out at the 7th Zionist Congress in 1905, it has been universally agreed that the Jewish state must be located in biblical Israel. But which part? How large a part? With access to other parts? What makes a homeland? These are all legitimate, live, and crucial questions. To think about the 4HQ in perhaps a simpler way, questions about to be ask questions of safety and security. People, asks about who we are and how we should behave as a result. And free asks about rights and responsibilities. And in our land asks questions of home, homeland, and borders. This might seem very abstract to all of you. What's he talking about? Questions, challenges, all of these things. So I want to give you two ways that I think that these can be applied. First of all, I think these questions are a way to help us listen to Israel conversations and a way to help us think clearly about Israel-related issues. What's she saying over there? What's he shouting about at the dinner table? Listen for the underlying questions that people are asking and address them. The conversation will be far richer and far more constructive. And when the latest headline screams across the Globe and Mail or National Post, try and see where and which of the 4 Hatikvah questions it addresses. Is it about existential threat? Is it about Jewishness? Is it about democracy? Is it about the land? The second way I think these can be used is as a way to give us a new way to talk. So first listen and then talk. So when the next major news story breaks in the ongoing saga of judicial reform, which it will inevitably, you can use this framework as a way to investigate how you feel about that news, and as a tool to discuss it with those around you. In a recent opinion piece for the Times of Israel, a good friend of mine, Michael Rainsbury, who was one of my counselors at camp, and I'm lucky to have as a friend today, is a tremendous Jewish educator working for the London School of Jewish Studies based out of Jerusalem, reflected on President Herzog's speech to Congress back in July. I wonder if some of you took the chance to watch it. In the closing remarks to his speech, President Herzog said, "The Israeli national anthem, Hatikvah, is a song of hope. And the late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks wrote that in Judaism, hope is an active virtue which requires a great deal of courage. Hope is the belief that together we can make the world better, that we can overcome setbacks and heal the fractures in our world. Israel's first 75 years were rooted in an ancient dream. Let us base our next 75 years on hope, our shared hope that we can heal our fractured world as the closest of allies and friends." Rabbi Sacks, of blessed memory, who I was privileged to meet on a number of occasions, was the previous chief rabbi of the United Hebrew Congregations of the Commonwealth. And he beautifully articulated that hope in Judaism is not a passive desire, but an active virtue that necessitates courage. It's an invitation to each one of us to actively contribute to mending the fractures in our world. This is not just a mission for individuals, but a collective task, bringing us all together in a shared hope, strengthened as allies and friends as we build upon the dreams that have guided Israel's first 75 years. In his article, my friend Michael highlighted Herzog's reinterpretation of Hatikvah, which encapsulates the heartbeat of Israel's national identity and marks a transformative shift in focus from pursuing freedom to embarking on a mission of healing our fractured world. In his article, let me repeat those last few lines from the quote I shared from Herzog. Israel's first 75 years were rooted in an ancient dream. Let us base our next 75 years on hope, our shared hope that we can heal our fractured world as the closest of allies and friends. This is not a diminution of the dream of independence that has fueled Israel's journey so far, but a bold step towards a broader and more inclusive vision that builds upon the realized dreams of independence and freedom. This envisioning is not just a temporal endeavor. It's reclaiming of a 3,000-year-old dream grounded in a deep layer of our rich tradition. that calls us to be bearers of justice and craftsmen of a society built upon the values deeply rooted in our ancestral legacy. Drawing inspiration from Jewish sources, President Herzog's vision invites us into a purposeful journey, nurturing a society that embodies justice and compassion, fostering small gestures and policies that work in harmony towards a noble goal of healing our world piece by piece, person by person. As we stand in this sacred space, let us reflect deeply on this, because this calling isn't confined to the borders of Israel. This is a call for Jewish communities globally, a call to renew our understanding and relationship with Zionism, to work for an Israel that can be and will be a beacon, exemplifying a values-driven, inclusive vision that it strives to heal and nurture a fractured world through moral leadership. This is indeed a challenging path, a path that demands us to change focus, to be the bearers of a new hope, a renewed vision in the face of uncertainties and changing global dynamics, a path that encourages us to embrace small yet significant steps in building a society that resonates with fairness and empathy. My friends, as we come together today, I hope that we can embrace President Herzog's invitation to revolutionize Zionism, to embark on this ambitious yet grounding journey to foster a society that is reflective of our deeply rooted values, a society where dreams of freedom and independence marry the virtues of justice and compassion. As we find ourselves in a moment of historic tension in our community, remembering the disunities of the past, let this be a pivot, a clarion call for change. Let us take up this challenge as Jews in the diaspora to forge a new path grounded in our ancient tradition of ethical, responsible, and spiritual society, to foster healing and harmony in our ancestral homelands. Let us journey together with hearts full of hope and spirits brimming with courage as we forge a future rooted in healing and united in that shared hope. A future that respects and builds upon the dreams of yesteryears while fearlessly charting a path of compassion, justice, and unity for generations to come. Ledor vador, from generation to generation. Amen.